How do we stop the rising obesity rate with half the US population projected to be obese by 2030? AskReddit said, get rid of the insane amount of sugar in everything. Wisdom List said, not sure. Could depend on where you are in Europe or what brands you prefer. I'm sure there is sweetened whipped cream in Europe. My understanding, and I as an American am no expert on European cuisine, is that most versions of European food have much less, or no, sugar or salt added than the American versions of the same thing. As far as whipped cream goes, for hundreds of years the only ingredients in whipped cream was cream that's been whipped. Cream is sweet enough, it doesn't really need added sugar. In America, when you say whipped cream, most people think of Cool Whip, which is not the same thing but is the same uses and is highly sweetened. Dagda the Druid said, that. The question, why is it even added? I mean, in sweets it's okay, but in things that are supposed to be salty, why take the effort to ruin both taste and health? Not to mention it's even added to simple bread, so you cannot make a decent toaster sandwich. So the only decent bread I can get is in the Polish store, which is 6 hours of driving away, and even that's only yesterday's bread, because it's imported from Poland. Even frozen pizzas imported from the UK are healthier than locally made vegetable sandwiches. The Purple Skittle said, this is one of the main drivers. Our bodies are evolutionarily driven to seek out and crave foods that are the highest caloric bang for the buck. Evolution has not had time to adjust to the overwhelming glut of access to high caloric density foods that it just never knew it would be able to have, and which had really only become available and subsequently exploded over the past 3-5 decades. Evolution just can't work that quickly. I highly recommend the book How Not to Diet for a great explanation and analysis of just this. Alex the Hero said, eliminate the excessive addition of high fructose corn syrup to goddamn near every product sold here. Education about dietary needs, planning meals and eating healthy on a budget in public schools. Make gym class less humiliating and more fun. Embarrassment is often the highlight of gym class for fat kids, and it discourages them from getting the exercise that would help them the most. Azymph said, yes. They realized all us fat kids signed up for the walking pay class in high school and changed the class to what us kids called fat camp instead. Pay needs to be more focused on exercise for fun and health and life, not rules of various sports ball games or running until everyone who doesn't do cross country is miserable. I would have loved to see more options available to kids that are seen in the adult gym world. Zumba, cycling, Tai Chi and yoga come to mind, so that when they graduate they can go continue doing what they enjoyed instead of hating anything that resembles pay. Andia Swasam said, yes. I spent my whole young life thinking I hated sports. Gym was the worst. I'm never going to run again in my life. It turns out, I really like hiking, kayaking, bike riding, even spin class, yoga, roller skating, swimming, and other active things. Even volleyball is okay when it's my friends at the beach, being encouraging. It took me way too long into my adult life to figure out that exercise is fun. Also, we really need better urban development that encourages walking or cycling incorporated into everyday life. I dropped weight without trying at all, still eating whatever I wanted, when I lived in cities that didn't require a car to get around. Lepton Radiation said, it's funny you mention tennis, because I would never have played tennis in high school if I wasn't introduced to it in pay during middle school. And I'm sure the same happens for things like volleyball and basketball, because tons of kids just don't have the means to join rec leagues on their own. So I agree with you guys that they should try to make it more fun for kids who don't like certain sports or are unathletic, but that should come in the form of more options instead of less. And no matter how you slice it, parts of pay just aren't gonna be fun. Very few people actually enjoy running or stretching or calisthenics, but it's important for kids to get regular exercise. Highly Offensive 10 said, let me start by saying I don't think this is the main issue, but I do think it is part of it. People work from 8-9 to 4-5, maybe later. Then add on a 1 hour for their commute. People only have 4 or 5 hours for themselves. That's if they don't have kids or another job. Exercise and cooking healthy meals take time. Some people may not prioritize them or may not have enough energy to at the end of the day. So in my opinion, part of the solution would be to give people more time, a shorter workday or week. Edit. I don't need to hear about how you work 25-hour shifts 8 days a week and still find time to be healthy. Is it really that difficult to understand that not everyone has the energy to do that? Cool, I said. My so works in healthcare, and a big problem third shift workers have is that nothing is open except convenience stores. So snacks consist of processed sugar bread products. To combat this, for COVID, they would have potluck every damn weekend and half of the people would pick up bakery items, making the potluck various sugar breads. My so does seem to get in a ton of walking during the day and will frequently get in 12K steps, so it helps a bit. It's better than my office job's 500 steps per day walking to the bathroom. Nurses seem to have a pretty high obesity rate, smoking rate and alcoholic rate, considering they probably tell their patients all those things are bad for you. Ring Off Time said. You are exactly right, it's a very harmful habit to get into, and in some jobs it's hard not to get into that kind of habit. Snacks can help tide someone over if they have little time to make a meal. Eating more filling foods that aren't as calorie dense, like vegetables and legumes and certain types of meat if you aren't a vegetarian vegan. Your body will adapt to less food over time, just like it will adapt to more food if you let it. It's important to cover the micronutrients you need and gauge your calorie intake to the amount of energy you expect to use. Devster said. Mental energy is a huge factor. There was a study that showed people whose cognitive resources are drained end up making worse decisions about food than people who still have some gas in the tank. The experiment went something like giving people a memory test. One group had to memorize just 2 digits, the other group had to memorize 7 digits. They then offered each group a snack in the middle of the experiment, cake and fruit, but the snack itself was part of the experiment. They found that statistically speaking, the people who had to memorize 7 digits went for cake with higher frequency than people who just had to memorize 2 digits. Burning cognitive resources even on fairly simple tasks can make it challenging for some people to make healthy choices for themselves. I'm all in favor of a shorter workday. 4-day work week would be nice, but we all know that companies would just push people to work 10-hour shifts instead of 8-hour shifts anyway. I'd rather just have 6 hours work days 5 days a week. Getting an extra 2 hours back each day would be a huge help. Jordan Colburn said. Car-centric city design. When you have to drive for work, drive to the store, drive to drop your kids off, all you end up doing is sitting on your butt. Say you somehow find the time to exercise, now you either drive to the park to run or drive to the gym. I've been fortunate enough to be able to bike to work, in the past, from home now, even pre-pandemic, bike to drop off the kids and walk to park areas, and it has really changed my quality of life. But to do this, we have to be willing to make sacrifices. More dense cities, smaller houses, not cities catering to big box stores with giant parking lots over smaller stores that front the street in a dense shopping center. It really won't happen on a broad scale in America because people are so accustomed to the things that are making them miserable that they fight change tooth and nail. I truly believe it is life-changing to be able to move and live life in your city without a car, and people would be shocked at how happy they are when they are free to move more in their daily life. Asterisoff Katnaizis said. The amount of walking I do by virtue of living in a walkable city is pretty significant. Ignoring the pandemic for the moment, just from home subway is a mile a day. Suburbanites, when was the last time you walked a mile? I sometimes think about when a friend came from out of town. We wanted to walk from where we were to a different spot. A couple blocks. Half a mile, looking at it on Google Maps now. Out-of-towner friend was dying. They wanted to call a car. For a 10-minute walk. I never want to live somewhere where you need a car again. Prodigy 195 said. I never want to live somewhere where you need a car again. Then the issue becomes affordability. My wife and I lived in Chicago until recently, I'm talking like a week ago, and enjoyed it there. But then we had a family and wanted more space. So now we get to play the pick 2 of 3 game between affordable, space, safety. The places we could afford and had good space weren't in the safest areas. The places we could afford and were in safe areas didn't have enough space. The places with the space and safety just weren't affordable. I think for a lot of people city life isn't sustainable as their family grows because of price. There is a reason why the 20-somethings who turn into 30-somethings with kids leave the city and move to the burbs trope exists. If you're a single person or a couple of adults who want to stay in the city, then it's definitely possible, but once you have kids it just gets tough for most. Unnecessary timeline said. This is literally the biggest move the government could make. They wouldn't even need to eliminate every corn subsidy, though they should. They could just make any corn which has an end product intended for human consumption and or that is human grade and eligible for subsidy. The US has the highest per capita consumption of HFC of any country. It is sweeter and more addictive than sugar. Even if HFC is not objectively worse than the same amount of sugar, the issue is that HFC is so cheap to make that it gets put in everything, specifically so that people get addicted. There's a reason so many Europeans say American candy is sickeningly, off-puttingly sweet. If we stopped subsidizing HFC, it would likely lower its overwhelming presence in our foods, which could help our obesity rates. Utrecht 436 Yuj 2 said there are probably at least a dozen things that would help. One that comes to mind is investing more substantially in public infrastructure toward the objective of making more places walkable would be a step in the right direction. Better public transport, more parks and open spaces, better bike paths, better walking paths, including more trees planted for shade, and just city beautification in general that encourages people to want to get out and move around more. The more walkable cities in the world tend to also have lower level of obesity, and again, there are a lot of factors here. This is just one thing, but it's still a thing, and the thing about it is that it is so lateral to the problem that people get encouraged to do it, be more active, basically without even realizing it. It becomes a consequence of enjoying their area more. Ganesh's Rat said. Yep, to the last part. Working 60 hours a week being salaried leaves no energy for working out or cooking a healthy meal. Being depressed leaves no energy or desire to work out or to prep for a week of healthy meals. I've had to switch to a standing desk with a mini treadmill underneath to start covering the workouts, but days I have back-to-back Zoom meetings I'm back sitting down. If I could afford a personal chef I'd have healthy eating covered, lol. Jamalim said. I agree. Serving sizes just aren't a thing to people who aren't paying attention. Just fill up the plate. Get seconds if it's tasty. I've noticed that when people get a normal size portion at a restaurant here, they usually have a fit. Meanwhile, enormous portions are praised in the reviews. Everyone is saying fast food, but a lot of fast food isn't that terribly calorie dense until you pair it with a large fries and a large Coke and a pie. It's not the food itself, though it is definitely not nearly as healthy as home-cooked food, but the portions of it. Jairus said people should really learn that feeling hunger doesn't mean I have to eat right the fuck now. Hard to do when they grew up in a house stuffed with snacks and food, and every time they felt the slightest bit of hunger they immediately ate something. Normal hunger isn't a critical priority Alpha 1 emergency alert. It's just a notification, stomach contents successfully sent to guts for processing. But many people have never gotten past this point, so their brain thinks it's the starving to death alarm. Terrible Attitude said. Yeah. People literally train their kids to not understand when they are full by enforcing clean plate club, then plunk down adult-sized portions in front of them. They act like not force-feeding their children until they're sick is some kind of trick. If you don't pork yourself full at every opportunity and lick the plate, people groan in concern that you're sick. I know people who get so frustrated that they can't lose weight when they only eat healthy. I eat baked salmon, brown rice, and steamed broccoli every night, but fail to notice that it's a heap of rice, a mountain of broccoli, and a full pound fillet of fish. Just because food is nutritious does not mean it has 0 calories and you can eat an infinite amount and still lose weight. There are systemic problems with this too. You can't get food from a restaurant without being served a mountain, and generally, people will comment if you don't eat the bulk of it. Unnecessary Timeline said. We've tried that multiple times before, but the structure of our government is so inherently flawed that lobbyists from different food industries ruin it every time. See, every iteration of the food pyramid being influenced by agriculture industries, the got milk campaigns, marinara sauce as a vegetable in school lunches, the all fat is bad fad, the all cholesterol is bad fad, and on and on. Vamp Duke said. The issue with biking in my area of the States is that it's hot. It's too hot and humid at any time of the day to just exist outside, much less try and go somewhere. Add to that the general lack of sidewalks, public transportation, and lack of lighting, And there's nowhere for me to go and feel safe at night when it might be cool enough to do anything for a good half of the year. For the rest of the year, just the lack of sidewalks and lit paths is an issue, since I get off at 8 p.m. and the sun sets at, like, 6 p.m. Wallflower 103 said. Plus, everything is really spread out in the US, at least, if you're not directly in a major city. I've lived in various suburbs all my life. I was luckily probably under a 30-minute walk to a grocery store and 3-5 more places everywhere I've lived, though I would have had to walk on busy main roads with no sidewalks to get there. Otherwise, everything else was over 3 miles away. It really isn't feasible to walk that many places in America unless your home is adequately placed in the suburbs or if you live in a major city. Then you get these people who live in rural areas who are a 20-minute drive to the nearest grocery store. Oat Champion said. In my country, Sweden, we have the same work hours as America and we still don't have that level of obesity problem. I think it's far more complex than people just being too tired to exercise after work. I personally think that the problem lies in culture and education. In America you get chicken nuggets, burgers and fries as school food. In Sweden we almost never get those foods because they're unhealthy. It already starts with the kids. In Sweden it's part of the education to learn how to cook food and what foods are unhealthy. Also in Sweden, walking to places if it's 1-3 km/1-2 miles is the norm, while the Americans I know would take the car. Americans are a food-loving people, for better and for worse, but I feel like the popular dishes are unhealthy food. For example, this state is known for its pizza or this state is known for its barbecue. And the most popular breakfast cereals are the ones with tons of sugar. I think sugar and fatty food is part of the American culture by now. I love fatty foods and burgers BTW. Eating fast food once a week is often in Sweden. Frosty Mess 2265 said. Seconded, but I will say there's a right and a wrong way to do it. Food tech at my school was shit in this regard. Most of our assignments were to cook dessert-style foods but make them healthy. Examples, apple pie, but no sugar is allowed. Zucchini muffins. Granola bars with no actual granola, literally just baked oats. The biggest takeaway I got from those classes was that healthy food tastes like shit. Obviously I've now realized that isn't true, but for God's sake, desserts are not supposed to be good for you. It would have been much better if they impressed on us the need for moderation in sweet things and taught us how to make healthy balanced meals. This is in the UK, not America, but the point still stands. Spinnerman 1846 said. This simply isn't true. People in countries where there isn't an obesity problem don't go around thinking I don't want to get fat all day every day. A population's health is cultural, and changes in that culture can influence people into making healthier choices because they're more convenient or more enjoyable rather than because they're healthy. I commute to work by bike every day. It's faster than driving or public transport. I enjoy cycling and it improves my work performance, but it also helps me lose, or now maintain, weight. The weight loss is such a small part of my reasoning, but is a side effect from the decisions that my city allows me to make. Affectionate Emu 1374 said. As someone who doesn't live in America but has visited plenty of times, the issues I see are: 1. It is cheaper to buy fast food or junk food than fruit and vegetables. I paid $3 for 2 bananas but could have got 3 items from McDonald's for that price. 2. Portion sizes in restaurants are huge. Plus the abundance of all-you-can-eat restaurants for discounted prices. 3. Cars are encouraged when walking or cycling would be better options. Basically, healthy options and alternatives are expensive, so if you don't have excess disposable income you will give your children junk food. Restaurants and takeaway outlets are everywhere and it is encouraged to gorge yourself on food. Until it is cheaper to eat healthier than not, there will be a socio-economic divide in health.